One of the major attributes of Makuutu being an ionic adsorption clay is that between the mineralisation in the ground to extract or to mine and extract it, we're able to produce a critical and heavy rare earth basket. That critical and heavy rare earth basket is about 73% in content.
Hello, welcome to Assay TV. Today, I'm delighted to be joined once again by the Managing Director of Ionic Rare Earths, Tim Harrison. Tim, great to see you again today. Last time we spoke, you gave us some sort of detail about your Makuutu Heavy Rare Earths Project there in Uganda. If we can just start things off, give us a little quick sort of recap on the project, where you're at with that.
Hi, Leo, and thanks for having me back. Since we last spoke, we've obviously, moved ahead with a number of programs at Makuutu. Earlier this year, we announced our scoping study on the Makuutu Rare Earths Project in Uganda. The scoping study was based upon the indicated resource base at Makuutu. That indicated resource base represents about 20% of the identified mineral resource estimate at Makuutu. So it gave a bit of a flavour of the potential at Makuutu. We announced the base case results. We also looked at a longer life opportunity, which extends out to 27 years plus. So since the scoping study, the company has been progressing with a number of drill programs. Phase 3 drilling was around identifying the potential for substantial extensions. That was an extremely successful program. So we validated some of our concepts around potential new mineralisation out to the east. We have a massive anomaly that we pegged. We pegged some ground last year. That rotary air blast drilling in phase 3 was successful in identifying ionic adsorption clay or clay-hosted rare earths. We've also identified a new zone to the northwest. So we've recently put in an application for that, and we're waiting for feedback from the DGSM in Uganda on the outcome of that application. Since then, I think in June, we commenced the phase 4 drilling, which has been an infill drill program designed to increase the classification on the inferred resources at Makuutu, and also to convert a small portion of the indicated resource to measured. So today we've actually announced, or this week we've announced additional drilling for the phase 4 program. Again, looking at building a very large resource base to support the feasibility study. So it's been a very active few months since we last spoke. We've also got a number of environmental and community programs underway in Uganda, growing the team and being very successful in advancing the project, I think, to meet an aggressive schedule to get this operation into production sooner rather than later.
And I mean, if you just remind us, your resource, when you did that scoping study, what was the resource at that point?
The total resource estimate, mineral resource estimate, was 315 million tonnes at 650 ppm TREO. What I would, I suppose one of the major attributes of Makuutu being an ionic adsorption clay is that between the mineralisation in the ground to extract or to mine and extract it, we're able to produce a critical and heavy rare earth basket. That critical and heavy rare earth basket is about 73% in content, is substantially higher than many of the other projects being developed globally. So it really does differentiate itself from a vast number of projects out there that have higher head grades. But given it's an ionic adsorption clay, it does produce a product with no radionuclides, a value-added product that can go immediately into rare earth separation via solvent extraction. So it's very a much lower capital intensity project, and the lower head grade that we've seen at the project is consistent with what we see with the Chinese-based ionic adsorption clays. So we know that we've got a very large deposit. We think that there's substantial potential for further extension of that resource well beyond 30 years of operations.
And as you mentioned, I mean, you're now on your phase 4 of drilling, and you've just announced that you've extended that further. When do you expect to have sort of that completed and results coming in?
So the additional 2,100 metres that we've added now takes the program to 7,800 metres. The plan is to try and get that drilling completed in early October. We'll get the core out of the country. We'll submit that for assay here in Australia. The intent is to turn that information around and work towards getting a mineral resource estimate update early next year that can then be used to support the feasibility study. The initial intent of the program was around the increase in classification in the Makuutu central area, so the central retention license 1693. Given we've had such a good run with drilling in country, we've been able to mobilise a third rig. We're drilling at a faster rate than we'd previously anticipated. It's created a window where we can do an extra 4 weeks of drilling. So that's effectively what we've announced today. We're bringing that drill program in. We want to get that completed by early October, back to Australia for assay, and then data for a resource estimate update next year. The expectation is that we're going to be able to increase the indicated component or the indicated resource base at Makuutu to around about 250 million tonnes plus or minus. So we think that that's going to be a great foundation for the feasibility study.
And as you mentioned earlier, with these projects, it's the devil's in the detail, isn't it? I mean, what are the key things that you think investors should be looking at when they're looking at your project when comparing them with other rare earth projects?
Well, I think it's important investors understand that, reporting a total rare earth oxide, so a TREO grade, is part of the exercise, but it's understanding the distribution of the individual rare earth elements within that TREO grade. So it's important to understand the content and the ability to ultimately get that content to a product, a saleable product. With an ionic adsorption clay, typically they have much lower capital development hurdles. So, we're talking, a fraction of the capital requirements that a hard rock project would face. The simple nature of mining and processing means that we can develop a high margin basket. So we're producing a value-added rare earth basket dominant in the critical and heavy rare earths required for carbon or for governments globally to achieve ambitions of carbon neutrality and also to enable new technologies for the future. So the intent of what Ionic is doing with Makuutu is to develop a modular project that we could minimise the initial capital outlay, get into production, and then use the substantial amount of free cash flows that are generated from the low-cost project in order to fund the organic growth. So we're looking at producing a value-added product, a mixed rare earth carbonate that can go immediately into the rare earth separation. So there's no capital-intensive cracking required. We can produce a product that can go straight into that individual rare earth separation. And the scalable nature, the vast, massive size of Makuutu means that we can tweak, we can ramp up the asset to better reflect the growing demand of the future. So it's quite a responsive type of project, a responsive type of mineralization, and I think it's important that investors understand the differences between the hard rock rare earth projects that are readily available in the investment community. And the very rare nature of the ionic adsorption clays, which, to be honest, have been the most highly sought after of rare earth deposits globally.
The Chinese mines in southern China, they're mostly clay deposits, aren't they? And those are the ones that have been producing all of the rare earths previously, but not so many of those outside China. That's correct.
The ionic adsorption clays of southern China have really been the engine room. They produce around about 95% of the global heavy rare earth production at the moment. Those ionic adsorption clays in southern China are a finite resource. They are being depleted. China is sourcing alternative supplies or alternative mineralization in other Southeast Asian nations. The prevalence of the ionic adsorption clays outside of Southeast Asia and southern China is not really well understood. Whilst people have been looking for them for some time, rare to find them of a scale that makes it economic for Western companies to develop. And so Makuutu is one of the largest ionic adsorption clay deposits found globally. It's extremely rare. It's one of less than a handful of ionic adsorption clays that have been identified to date with the size, scale, and metallurgy that enables it to be an economic proposition for development. So, we're very excited about the opportunity to develop Makuutu and bring that alternative supply of rare earths to market.
And I see that you've recently initiated a downstream scoping study for a standalone heavy rare earths processing facility. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you're planning there?
Yeah, thanks, Leo. So the intent of the facility to look at the heavy rare earth separation and refining asset is to effectively leverage the massive nature of Makuutu. So, we've got a deposit, we've got a scoping study that identified the potential for a 27-year project life. We know that resource is going to get substantially larger. On the back of that larger resource, there's an opportunity for us to develop the downstream processing capability to maximize the value from the unique basket that Makuutu will produce. So the intent with the work that we're doing on the scoping study has been to unlock the value of the basket. Previously we have announced to the market a non-binding MOU that we signed with China Rare Earths Jiangsu, which is very much in nature of helping the company to bring Makuutu to market and to be able to de-risk the development of the asset and ultimately place the product into the market in 2024. Given that all of the heavy rare earth refining capacity that exists in production today globally is in China, the opportunity for the company to develop an alternative heavy rare earth separation and refining facility, which we can then send the product to in subsequent later years of development after we've de-risked Makuutu, provides us with I think a strategic advantage to maximize the value of the basket. I think the other thing is that what we're going to find, my expectation is that Makuutu will get a lot larger. It's certainly going to be a project that's going to be able to sustain and support more than one strategic partner. And I think by looking at going downstream and understanding the opportunity, it will unlock a lot more avenues for the company to explore, maximizing the revenue from the rare earths that are produced and understanding how we can potentially even develop a larger asset, a more value enhanced project for the company and shareholders.
And would that facility be in Uganda, or are you looking at other opportunities? I know that there are some projects being built in the UK, for example, to process rare earths.
Yeah, look, at the moment we are, as part of the scoping study that we've initiated on the heavy rare earth separation refining facility, we are looking at a number of global locations. The intent is to find the best location for our product, for our market. And so we are looking at, a number of global locations. We will evaluate Uganda as one of those options. But there's a number of other locations which we've identified and in discussions with various potential strategic partners. Typically, those locations are close to low-cost infrastructure, in existing infrastructure. They're available and in close proximity to low-cost reagents, power, ports, and technical capability to be able to support such an operation. So it's an exercise that we have to go through to make sure that we shortlist the right locations and arrive at the right solution for the company. Because once we start this process, I think it'll pick up a lot of momentum and move very quickly.
Absolutely. And you mentioned China Jiangsu there, as you've signed an MOU, a non-binding MOU with them. What's required to turn that into a binding MOU? And you mentioned some other offtake partners. What else can you tell us about your negotiations with other potential partners?
Okay, so the non-binding MOU that we signed with China Rare Earths Jiangsu is the first step in a process to ultimately look at the potential of collaboration on the development of Makuutu. So as part of that process, we're obviously looking to bring in the expertise from China Rare Earths and their subsidiary China Rare Earths Jiangsu, to bring in know-how to help us de-risk the development of Makuutu. So there's a work program that we're working through at the moment with China Rare Earths Jiangsu, which is aimed at giving us a high degree of confidence on the feasibility study. We've sent some metallurgical samples to them. So there's a work program that's being completed at the moment. So the nature of the engagement and the non-binding nature of the MOU with China Rare Earths Jiangsu means that it's effectively framed around helping the company get this asset into production sooner rather than later, and to de-risk the application of the processing and mining of ionic adsorption clays, and to I suppose steepen up our ramp up. So in bringing in that know-how, the intent is to effectively de-risk the development of Makuutu. With regards to other groups that we're speaking with, the non-binding nature of the MOU did have an exclusivity clause, which precludes us from talking with anyone new. So we do have a number of groups, global groups, that we have been talking with before signing that non-binding MOU with China Rare Earths Jiangsu. Those discussions continue, and the intent is to work through the program over the course of the next 12 months, get to the point where we can submit a mining license application, and then try and make the best decision for the company moving forward.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like you've got a lot going on at the moment, lots of drilling, and then also lots of discussions looking at the downstream end of things as well. But thank you very much, Tim, for joining us today and giving us an update on the company.
Thanks, Leo.